welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. It's been 10 seasons of empowering India's small businesses such as yourselves and hand-holding and guiding you in your growth journey. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. On the show tonight, we're talking about the impact of the budget and what to look forward to for India's small businesses as part of a pre-budget special that we're doing here on the show. Also, discussing all things G20 and the impact on the economy. That's with both our experts. First up, joining me live on the show is Upasana Taku of Mobikwik. Also in conversation with Sunil Alagh of SKA Advisors. Upasana, good having you with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. I want to start with G20 and the fact that the G20 presidency is great as far as India and its presence on a global stage. But in terms of the impact on the economy and the different sectors, that's what I want to get your thoughts on as we're kicking off today's interview.
I think India taking on the G20 presidency mantle is a very ambitious and important step. Prime Minister Modi ji's words come to mind. India's G20 presidency will be inclusive, it will be ambitious, and it will be action-oriented. I think this one world, one ambition idea that has come through how India has started its presidency launch is amazing. I think the thing to keep in mind is that we have a very young population in India. We are still one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And I think with the kind of smart labor force that we have, I say smart because India is not just a labor market, India is now the smartest tech brains in the world. Along with the strong fundamentals, of our economy and of our country, I do believe that there will be a huge transformation in terms of India becoming the third largest economy in the world in the next few years. And along with that, partnering and collaborating with all the important nations of the world and taking them along. And I think that this is going to create a huge opportunity not only for the citizens of India but also entrepreneurs and businesses that are built in India but not just for India, now being built for all over the world.
The second thing everyone's looking forward to, at least in the short term of course, is the Indian budget that's going to get announced on the 1st of February. Anything specific that you're looking forward to from the fintech space as a leader in this space, one, and two, as a woman and a female entrepreneur, anything more by way of support perhaps for India's female entrepreneurs that you would like to hear from the government?
Yeah, so I think that firstly, as we know, in India today, roughly less than 5% Indians, pay taxes. So I think my first request would be for the government to do more so that more people come under the anvil of paying taxes, whether they are small businesses, whether they are self-employed people or whether they are, professionally employed people. I think what that will do is that will allow the opportunity to ease the burden of the quantum of taxes that the small population of 4-5% people, are paying. That's the number one thing I would say. The number two thing I would say is that from the perspective of economic growth, and of course, India is a very fast developing economy. We want to become the third largest economy in terms of our GDP growth. Keeping that in mind, we do want more employment generation, we do want more business creation, and to that extent, small businesses and startups and entrepreneurs, they do need the government support. So whether it is, easing out the tax burden, whether it is simplifying the GST, policies, or I'll give you a very simple example. In the last few years, in the last 10 years, we have seen, thousands of startups, come into play. Just in my sector, in fintech alone, we have between 8,000 to 9,000 startups. And think about the type of products they've brought to the market, the kind of impact they've created, and the number of people they've employed. Now, one pain point that we have seen very significantly impact is the tax on ESOPs. So when our employees exercise ESOPs, and not just ours, several companies that are now growth scale startups in India, as they are looking to become public companies, when employees start exercising ESOPs, the burden of taxes is extremely high. Perquisite taxes are as high as 40%. I think this is an area where we expect the government should take a note and make changes to how ESOP taxes are set up. I do believe that we have a very small percentage of women who are employed in India. I think last I saw, we are not even in the top 50 nations in terms of number of percentage of women in India that work. So if we do want to encourage that, maybe there can be, some sort of a temporary, SOP or subsidy, whether it is to women professionals, whether it is to women-led small businesses, or whether it is to startups and companies that have, all women as directors or majority shareholding as women.
Sure.
Some SOPs in this area could also create a turnaround in terms of number of women that participate in the economy.
What are your predictions as far as buy now, pay later is concerned, Upasana, and really to get your sense and your thoughts on why Indians perhaps are gravitating towards this? Is it a trend? You see this, lasting and moving forward? Why is it working so well for you? What can you tell us?
See, the stats on this are very simple. So in the last decade or so that, I've been running Mobikwik, the fintech sector in India has grown significantly. Internet e-commerce has grown significantly. Smartphone penetration has gone up significantly. But with all of that said and done, out of a country of 1.3 billion, 300 million Indians are transacting digitally today. And while 300 million are transacting digitally, only 30-40 million Indians have a credit card. So there you go, it is about 2.5 to 3% Indians have access to a credit card. And therefore, if you think about it, while when you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, even there the consumer wants brand new products and services that bring convenience and ease to their life and are easily available to them on their smartphone via several e-commerce platforms. But when they want to purchase them, they are sometimes, they have an aspirational product that they want to get, but they don't have access to any credit. So they are limited by the amount of quantum of money they have. Young millennials, young Gen Zers in the age groups of 20 to 30 in India, sitting in a small town or city in Madhya Pradesh, they're extremely smart. They want to benefit from buy now, pay later products, which offer them credit-free period, 0% interest. For certain products it's 15 days, for certain products it's 30 days. Even the industry reports are saying that this business is going to grow exponentially in India. It's expected that it will grow anywhere between 700 to 900% just in the next 3 to 4 years. And if I may say so, it is not just buy now, pay later products, but it is also EMI based shopping loan products. So it's sort of a value chain. Today, most of India is not getting access to credit from their bank. And when they get first access to a small ticket buy now pay later product, then they get access to a higher ticket shopping loan product. It is just bringing them, including them in the financial ecosystem and giving them the wings, to develop their life, having access to a sort of formal credit.
Sure. So from that company specific view, I just want to take a step back and talk about the industry and go back to talking about the fintech space. In its 10th edition, Leaders of Tomorrow is asking experts like yourself to call out the big trends as you see it. And my question to you is, in the fintech space, not 10, but could you perhaps call out the top 2 or 3 trends that you think are going to be here to stay in 2023?
Right. So the fintech ecosystem in India is growing at a very rapid pace. Some of the trends that, I can coming through, I think firstly, India is growing more and more a cashless economy. I think that is bound to happen. Every year we are seeing the percentage of digital payments in India increase. Last year, India did the highest number of digital payments for any country across all the countries of the world. So we are definitely becoming, a very fast growing digital economy. And we are very happy with regard to the part Mobikwik has played in that journey as well. When I think about the broader ecosystem, I think that while there are large players of scale that are now there in the fintech ecosystem across savings, across insurance, across credit, merchant acquiring, payments businesses. So they are scaling up. A lot more new players are coming through, and they are focusing, the smaller players are focusing on niches. We are seeing some banks and large financial institutions also try to innovate and use technology and make a fintech play.
Sure.
From a funding winter and the way 2022 has gone by and the way 23 is shaping up, it looks like it's a time for sustained profitable growth. And so it's a time for zebras and no more time for unicorns with lofty and inflated valuations. Investors have become fairly sharp on that end.
Upasana, I want to end today's interview by asking you, what is your success mantra? What is Upasana Taku's success mantra like? And as the first female CEO of a fintech company, what is your advice for entrepreneurs who are watching this interview, male or female? What do you want to leave us with?
So the advice I would like to give your fellow entrepreneurs is opportunity is limitless, not only in India, but several markets across the world. Go for it. But the key thing to doing your own venture, to being an entrepreneur, is you have a lot of self-belief and a lot of conviction in what you're doing. And so don't listen to the naysayers. Just keep going forward. If you keep going forward, you will achieve your goal.
All right, Upasana. Good having you here on the show with us. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Sunanda.
I'll take a quick break. Sunil Alagh joining us here on the other side with his take on the budget and the G20 presidency. He's joining us live on the show. Do stay tuned. Back in just a moment. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. My second guest tonight, Sunil Alagh of SKA Advisors. Sunil, good as always having you with us here on the show. My previous guest, Upasana Taku, was speaking about the G20 presidency. That was my first question to her. So I want to lead with that for this interview as well. As an impact on the economy, what are you expecting? Do you feel that perhaps in the short term is going to be too soon to really see any impact, but in the long term we could perhaps see something?
It will do wonders for India's image. And therefore, when people come from all over the world and see India as it is, then the opportunity will come in for the economy and everything else in the coming years. But don't expect anything in year one, that just because we've got G20 presidency, it'll happen. But it will definitely help in India's image.
I want to talk about unemployment data released by CMIE, and I just want to read this out for the sake of our viewers. In December 2022, it was at about 8.3%, which was a sharp increase just on a month-on-month basis. Where do you think this is coming about from?
See, look, the main cause is the population increase. Whilst we talk about the younger generation as being a plus point, which it is for India, but we got to remember that the more we add on to the workforce, the greater the opportunity lies in terms of dealing with unemployment, which is going to be a major problem for the government in the next few years. But unemployment by itself is not going to be considered. You have to break it up into skilled and unskilled. See, when the industrial revolution took place, a lot of people lost jobs because a lot of machinery took over. Similarly, AI is now taking over and the big companies are cutting back. But at the end of it, you will have to increase skill employment. That part will go up. For instance, plumbing, electricians, when you talk to auto industry, they say, look, there's a dearth of people who are going into this kind of workforce which is there. Now, the unemployment in the other areas, which is, construction of roads, ports, when people carry on their heads, that will actually increase because the government is going to spend more and more capex on roads, on ports, on developing infrastructure. So there's going to be two parts. The skilled part is going to take its time when I say time, it'll take a couple of years before people get skilled into the whole thing.
Sunil, a lot is being said and discussed about the funding winter for India's IPOs and for Indian businesses and, funding really coming in. Since we were talking about funding, my question to you is your advice for small businesses to say, if we are indeed going to see some sort of drying up really of funds coming into startups, into SMEs and MSMEs, your advice then for either fundraising or just, even staying afloat, what do you want to tell them?
See, what I have told a number of people who start, first and foremost, are you making a different product? See, everybody cannot go in for a startup and expect people to fund it. They think in India maybe it's not available, but it's available abroad. So therefore, the first thing is to differentiate your product. Second is find a good mentor, who is with you right from start to finish. Third is that, look, if you think you're going to take 1 year or 2 years before you start making money, double it in your mind. If you do it in the period that you have said, 1 or 2 years, great. But if it takes more longer, make sure that you have the funding. Therefore, looking for an angel investor in the beginning is very important. Having got the money in, then you can go forward.
We're hearing news of a lot of businesses that are spending more and more money when it comes to customer acquisition. I'm of course talking about the unicorns or the sunicorns and businesses that are about to go IPO. And my question is, for a small business that doesn't have that sort of a war chest to spend on marketing, advertising, acquiring new customers, your advice in terms of just gaining that sort of visibility and attention, what should they be doing?
The important thing is that today you have an advantage of just looking at one state in India. Don't try and be an all India brand. That's what I've been telling all of them. For instance, UP alone is the size of France in Europe. It doesn't mean that you have to be number one in Europe. If you're number one in France first and then you extend yourself, that's what I keep telling them. Social advertising has made it cheaper for everyone to advertise in whatever form they can. And therefore, if you don't have the money, go in for the larger chains for distribution. Do not set up your own distribution system. You don't need it. The larger chains, like for instance, when you have Reliance, you have a number of other companies which will put it all over India. They may charge you extra amount for money, but they will put your product across without you having a sales force. And that's very important for them. So it's important that you start thinking of one state, of just one zone in India that's big enough for you. And don't think of becoming a national brand overnight.
Sure.
I'm against all IPOs where they don't, it seems to be in the last few years, the more money you lose, the higher the valuation. This is the most ridiculous form. People have to start looking at possibly making profits. You don't expect profits in the first few years, but you have to forecast when you're going to make it. Now, for instance, if you just have 1 crore of profit and you get a high valuation, that is a bad example to set, because most people in IPOs, then it starts going down. Today, everybody is getting educated on look at the possibility when you're putting money into a small firm, look at where it's going to be in a couple of years. That's what's important. And therefore, if it's never going to make money in the next 10 to 15 years, don't invest in it.
You were talking about location, so I just want to pick up on that and talk about the fact that CRISIL Ratings is talking about the impact of rural and rural demand really coming back as far as the FMCG space is concerned in 2023. How should small businesses which are looking, perhaps from the FMCG space, that are perhaps looking at expanding their footprint or gaining more of a market share, your advice to them on this?
The companies which are large companies like Britannia, Levers and everyone else must make, just because by reducing weights and by reducing, there's a limit to what you can do, because the consumer will understand. The important thing is, as long as you're making a profit, you'll make less profit in the coming year, but make sure that you do not lose market share. That's what all companies will have to perform on, because look, when you start cutting on, for a farmer, land is most important. When you start reducing your land and you sell your land when there is a drought, that becomes an impossibility. And what you should do is wait for the rains to come. They're bound to come next year. They're bound to come in 1 or 2 years. and therefore when the rains come you have a larger piece to actually build on without increasing your price too much. So therefore you are able to take care of inflation, you are able to take care, and you segment your market. The very rich can afford products even no matter what happens. So therefore there's a premiumization which is taking place. But the rural area demand will have to be sustained, and as long as you make the profits that is there, you must play the high volume, low margin game in the rural market.
I want to end tonight's conversation by saying and by asking you really about your thoughts on the union budget. What is the top 1 or 2 asks that you have? 1 from the FMCG space, and 2 also in terms of the impact that it's likely to have on the economy. What would you like to say?
You have to have a flexible budget to be able to make it more sustainable. When I say a flexible budget, I mean even during the year you will have to play around with it. The middle class, which has been ignored for 2 years now, has to get some money, which when I turn around and say don't reduce your taxes, don't increase your taxes, but make spending, encourage people to spend, that is very, very important. Now savings has also come down. So where do the people consider savings? Look at what PPF rates in the last couple of weeks, they've increased the rate. Post-tax, they get the best possible 7.5%, almost 8% now. So in that you encourage people to put into banks, your savings rate will go up. And at the same time you give them some relief to the middle income group, because that's very important in this budget. And that will help the FMCG sector, it will help everyone, because people are being encouraged to spend. Without spending, the economy is in trouble.
All right, Mr. Alagh, pleasure as always having you with us. Out of time on tonight's show. If you have any feedback for us, do let us know. Our details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.